So we are at Perashat Beshalah, and let me open up the text. The first pasuk of the Perashah. What is the date today? It's Tu Bishvat. That's easy. Actually, it's already Taz Bishvat. Tafshin Pe Aleph. Okay, so we live in interesting times, and it's great that we have the opportunity during these interesting times to study Torah, because the Torah is a source of sanity. And when the world is insane, it's good to be close to God's words, because that's what maintains sanity. So I love studying the Perashah. I absolutely adore it. So the pasuk is describing the Jewish people exiting Mitzrayim, and it creates an interesting dichotomy. There is actually something unusual, and it is as follows. The pasuk says, "Vahi beshalah par'o etam." Well, let's look at the previous pasuk. The last pasuk in Perashat Bo, and there's a lot of people on vacation, by the way. So there's a lot of people on vacation. There's a lot of people away. So that's why we have a small crowd, but it doesn't matter. I'm happy to teach Torah to whoever wants to study it. So just so you know, but a lot of people told me, a lot of people mentioned to me that they're away because of there's a winter break now. I totally understood. So we don't have a large crowd tonight, but that's okay. Talmud Torah, even one person studying Torah is a mitzvah. So, and al-hat kama v'chama Talmud Torah shel Rabbi. But I want to read to you the last pasuk of the previous parasha. The previous parasha ends with the pasuk Behozek yad hosianu Adonai mimisraim. When Hashem took us out of Egypt, He took us out with a powerful hand, right? So there was Yesiat Mitzrayim would not have been possible but for the awesome power of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. That's what allowed it. And Yesiat Mitzrayim means that the Jewish people willingly and happily left Mitzrayim. That's what Yesiat Mitzrayim is. But our ability to leave Mitzrayim was only possible because of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's power in effectuating that choice. But look at the first pasuk in this week's parasha. It says, "Vahi beshalah par'o et ha'am," and it came to pass that when Par'o sent away the people, beshalah means he did it with force. He told us to get out. Beshalah Par'o.
Kick them out.
Right. Beshalah Par'o et ha'am. And here you see a dichotomy. The dichotomy is, well, the previous pasuk says, Ki bechozik yad hosianu Adonai mimisraim. And that's the way last week's parasha did, right? This week's parasha says, Beshalah Par'o et ha'am. Now, furthermore, if you go a few pesukim forward in this week's parasha, it says, I'm sorry. Right, it says, Ubnei Israel yoseim beyad Ramah. The Jewish people were leaving Mitzrayim beyad Ramah. Their hands were high, right? So you can imagine a victory march leaving Egypt with the hands lifted high. So hold on. So which is it? Was it Beshalah Par'o? Or was it Ubnei Israel yoseim beyad Ramah? Which one is it? And the answer is, it depends who you're talking about. If you're talking about Bnei Israel, the Jewish people, the Jewish nation was intelligent. We understood that Egypt was a scam. We were being scammed. They took the Jewish people and they put us into a society of slaves. Everyone was a slave to Paro. I explained that last week, and as my father used to say, the Ten Commandments says, Anuchi Adonai Elohecha asher hoseticha be'eretz Mitzrayim mibet abadim. Why doesn't it say, Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hoseticha me'abdut? I am the God who took you out of slavery. It doesn't say I am the God who took you out of slavery, me'abdut. It says mi bet avadim, from a house of slavery, a house of slaves. Why does it say that? Because as my father explained, everybody was a slave. Everybody was a slave to Paro. It was a scam. It was a society of slavery. Nobody had freedom. There was no idea of freedom. You worked for Paro. I mean, Paro let you live. Obviously he was a smart guy. He would let you live. So he would tax you. You would work. You would pay X percentage of your money to Paro. But Paro told you, Paro controlled everybody, controlled everything, right? He controlled what you thought. He controlled what you were allowed to say. That's what slavery is. What slavery says, you may say this, you may not say that, you may think the following, you may not think the other way. If you think in the wrong way, we'll send you to Siberia, right? There's something wrong with you. And now the direction the United States is going in. If you're on the wrong side of politics, if you have certain thoughts, whether they're wrong or right, I don't need to address what I think about, for example, the question of voter fraud. By my own personal opinion, I'm not going to express it because it's irrelevant. But some people think there's voter fraud, right? Let's call them bad people. Let's just say that for purposes of this discussion. They're stupid, bad people. Since when is being stupid a crime? But it's becoming a crime in this country, right? They cancel you. They prevent you from getting work. They prevent you from taking flights. Now they're coming after, they're doing political persecution. So we all understand what direction America is going to. It's going to the direction of Mitzrayim, where the slaves are told what they can think. The slaves are told what they can do. And you work, you're allowed a certain lifestyle, but ultimately everything goes up to Paro. Paro is the beneficiary of everything, right? The state takes away the income of the people for whatever purposes the state wishes. So the Jews, there were two types of Jews. There was Bnei Israel. Bnei Israel understood that it's a scam. And they didn't want to play along in the scam. They didn't want to be told who to worship, what to think, what to do, what's right, what's wrong. They didn't buy into the scam. They saw it for what it was. And they left Mitzrayim beyad Ramah. They were happy to leave Egypt. And then there was the less intelligent Jews. They were the Am. The Am is the mixture, the Erev Rav, those who are kind of like, intermarried, perhaps not so loyal to Judaism, maybe a little loyal. There were many of the Am, they left because they saw that the Jews were doing well. So why not join the Jewish nation? So some, mixture of things, Erev Rav, as they were called, they joined the Jewish people, not because they were loyal to Torah. They weren't. They joined the Jewish people because they were opportunistic. It was an opportunity. And they viewed the Jews won the soccer game. So if the Jews won the soccer game, why should I root for the old team? Let me root for the new team. It was at intellectual level. But they didn't leave willingly. The truth, they didn't leave willingly. I exaggerate the point. Beshalah Paro. That's the truth. The truth is that they were forced by Paro out. He didn't want any Jews affiliated or non-affiliated, Jewish mother, Jewish father, grandchild of a Jew, granddaughter of a Jew, everybody out. So let me summarize, because I want to make the point a little more precise, because I don't believe I made it precise enough. There were the intelligent Jews who understood the sham and they left Egypt willingly. There were the unintelligent Jews who would not have joined the Jewish people, but for the fact that Paro forced him out. Paro was scared. He realized it's bad news to have the Jews here. Just get them all out. He didn't want another Makat Bechorot. That's Beshalah Paro et ha'am. Understood? Okay.
He expelled them.
Yep. Yeah, he did. He expelled them because this guy had a Jewish mother, this guy had a Jewish father. So he wanted them out. Right.
Rabbi,
I
why
want
would
to.
why would they want to stay if they were slaves for 200 years, even if they were the mixed or the half Jews, or why would they want to stay there?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's important to understand that not everybody recognizes the slavery that they are in,
Ah,
and many people
like
are
a
have
Patty
that.
Hearst syndrome.
Yeah, let me tell you a
Right,
story. Let me
exactly.
tell you. I'm
Spoke
sorry.
about this. The Hacham spoke about this, the miracle of. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But
No, that's okay. Let me tell you, there was Alexander Solzhenitsyn in his epic and incredible book, The Gulag.
Yeah.
He describes the following story, and I believe I said it in my synagogue once, but I'm not sure if I said it in this class. And the story is an incredible story. Danny, that's your name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me tell you the story. Back in the old Soviet Union, people were put into public housing by the government. And
Right.
oftentimes they would have several families sharing one apartment because there wasn't enough public housing to go around. And what would happen is it would be very crowded. So because it was crowded, sometimes one person would snitch on the other family, meaning one family or the head of one family would snitch on the other family and say that they were really anti-communist. This is common. They would do that because they know that if they snitched on that other family,
They got the space.
they get the space. Exactly. That was common. So what happened was that there was a lady who she had two daughters, and she lived in an apartment with other people, and the other people wanted the rest of the apartment, so they snitched on her. And this lady was sent to one of the brutal gulags in Russia. She eventually died in Siberia. She eventually dies. Anyway, she gets a letter from her daughter, and the daughter is asking the mother, "Mommy, is it true? Did you really go against the communists? I mean, is that true what they're accusing you of? Please tell us. We want to know." Now, the mother had only one of two choices. She could have told the truth to her daughters, and the truth was, no, I was always pro-communist, but the communists did something very bad. They made a mistake, and they sent me to the gulag by mistake because I'm pro-communist. If she would have done that, she would have saved her image in the eyes of her daughter, but she would have been speaking bad against the communist system that enslaved her. And it was the truth. That was the truth. The second option was to lie to her daughters. And the purpose of the lie would be to make herself look bad and say, yes, I was against the communists, but praise the communists because the communists did the right thing.
I actually read the book. I remember that now.
Yep. Okay. So you know what she did. She chose the latter choice. And the latter choice was,
it just goes to show you how far down the dark path people can actually end up.
It shows you how politics becomes a religion.
Right.
And there is no one more dogmatic, not than a religious person. There's no one more dogmatic than a secular person that believes in the party that he worships. They are the most dogmatic people in the world.
Right, the ideologists.
Yep. So there were many people, there were Jews, they were mixed. Now the regular Jews, no. But we're talking about intermarried Jews. Now, by the way, the Torah says, and I want to maybe I should summarize it as follows, because I know what I said may have been not, I want to summarize it. There was three categories of people, okay? There was Bnei Israel. Bnei Israel were the regular Jews who Yoseim B'Yad Ramah. Then there was Erev Rav. Erev Rav, many Erev Rav went with the Jewish people for opportunistic reasons. That's at the end of Parashat Bo, it's explicit. Not all of them had to be kicked out, but there were some of them who had to be kicked out. That's a third category. So you see, some were opportunistic. They said, let's join the Jewish people. This is great. They're the winning soccer team. Let's join them. Wonderful. That's Parashat Bo at the end. This parasha describes those people who wouldn't even join the Jewish people because they believed in the communist system that enslaved them. And they refused to go against that system. They thought it was the right system. They had to be kicked out by Paro. Paro says, what are you doing in me? I don't want you here. You ruined my country, you Jewish people. You have a Jewish grandmother. Your grandfather was Jewish. Get out of the country. Don't need you here. And so those people, they're the ones who did the Aigel HaZahab. They're the ones who reverted to Avodah Zarah. They're the ones who made trouble in the desert and who brought all of the sarot that we have. Important to understand that. So, but this is Jewish history, and I'm describing it not because I'm bitter about it. I'm not bitter. I'm merely describing the nature of the Jewish nation in a precise way, and in a way that can help us understand Jewish history. So that's the way it was, and let's continue the parasha, see what happens. The pasuk says, "Velo nacham Elohim derech eretz Pelishtim ki karov hu." Hashem didn't allow them to go up the natural road to Israel. If you're walking from Egypt to Israel, you take the coastal road parallel to the Sinai Desert, but by the coast, and you eventually reach what's known today as the Gaza Strip. Back then it was known as Eretz Pelishtim. There were Philistines there. He didn't take that road. And the reason he didn't take that road, although Kikarovu, notwithstanding the fact that it was close, I mean, it would have been a few days, it would have been in Israel. He didn't take that road. Ki amar Elohim, pen yinahem ha'am, birotam milchama v'shavu Misraima, because God understood that there would be a war. And God knew that upon encountering this war, the Jewish people would regret having left Egypt and they would return to Egypt. Now, Harambam asks the following question, which is obvious. Well, okay, so if you took us out of Egypt, Chozek Yad, why not have us conquer Israel Chozek Yad, right? I mean, so what's the issue? So God will do these miracles. And Harambam says something very profound. Harambam can do miracles. Harambam says that God can do miracles. But God will not take, hold on one second, I'm sorry. Right, but Harambam says God will not take a coward and miraculously turn him into a courageous warrior. God will not tinker with who we are. We must choose to do the right thing, right? We can always mess things up, and we've messed things up, and sometimes we've done things in the right way. It's all up to us. So what Harambam says is that yes, God could have done miracles, but we would still be the same cowards. And if you're a coward, you can't fight a war, and you can't run a country, and you can't build the Bet HaMikdash. And you know what else you can't do if you're a coward? You can't create an independent nation with your own ideas, because you're always going to hear the ideas from the outside and the propaganda from the outside, and you will accept that propaganda because you're a coward. And that's what cowards do. Cowards don't have the courage to stand up with integrity and say, no, I don't believe in this. This is nonsense and I reject it. Cowards can't do that. So what does God do? The pasuk says, "Vayaseb Elohim et ha'am derech hamidbar yam suf." The nation started walking towards Israel. They started walking towards the northeast. And the pasuk says, "Vayaseb." He literally turns them around, meaning he tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, I don't want them going to Israel. They're not ready. Turn them around. And he turns them around. And the pasuk says, "V'hamushim alu bnei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim." They left Egypt with weapons. So again, you have a dichotomy here. V'hamushim alu bnei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. They left Egypt with weapons. But hold on, didn't that just say they were cowards? So again, you see the dichotomy. The pasuk says, "Beshalah paro et ha'am," right? And pen yinahem ha'am. You had Bnei Israel, you had the aristocracy, you had the intelligent. They were ready to fight, the Hamushim. But the majority, the Am, they would have been scared. They would have panicked. It would not have been possible to fight the war. So again, you see this dichotomy within the Jewish people, which marks, in a sense, Jewish history, not just here. Jewish history is filled with this, two types of Jews. There's an Am, who's very weak, not willing to stand up for what we are and who we are, and they're very, malleable. They hear something new on TV. There's a new style, there's a new fashion, right? That's so exciting. Wow, did you see that new TV show? It's amazing. Okay, so that's the Am, right? They just buy into anything that Hollywood spills out to them. They'll buy it, they'll take it. But then you have the intelligent Jew who says, excuse me, this violates who I am as a Jew. This violates the Torah. I'm not buying into it. I'm not embarrassed of who I am. I refuse to be embarrassed. You have a little integrity, right? So they have integrity and they stand up for who they are. So you have that dichotomy in the parasha. So what do you do? How do you deal with that, right? Like what's the cure for that? So first of all, Hashem turns the Jewish people around and he takes them into Yam Suf. He takes them towards Yam Suf and through the desert. And they travel through the desert. So what does that do? How does that help them? I want to talk about that a little. Perhaps I should. Let me introduce you to the word used by Paro himself, of all people. Paro sees that the Jewish people are confused, or that's the way he perceives it, because they were going in the right direction and then they twist around and they go in the wrong direction. So Paro, who has spies, looking at the Jewish people, understands that they're confused. And the Pasuk says that when Paro observes what's happening to the Jewish people, he says, Nevuchim hem ba'ares. Sagar alehem hamidbar, nevuchim. Does anybody, or is anybody familiar with the word nevuchim? Anybody familiar with that word? Is there a title of a book in Hebrew that uses the word nevuchim? I see two people laughing, but that's only two people I see. As two people have their cameras on. It could be that more people are laughing. I don't know. But okay, there's a book called Moreh Nevuchim, which to me, by the way, is one of the greatest. I mean, it's certainly the greatest book written on Jewish mysticism ever. I mean, period. It is it's not a book on Jewish mysticism. It is a book that is Jewish mysticism. Let me correct myself. It's not a book about. It is the Jewish mysticism book, the greatest ever written. The greatest book on halakha ever written is the Mishneh Torah, by far, unquestionable. I mean, nobody can even dispute that. It is the only book on halakha that encompasses the entire halakha from A to Z. And without that book, you would not have had all the other books on halakha, from the Shulchan Aruch to the Tur, to all the other books that came afterwards, to the Aruch HaShulchan. Everything is based on Rambam. Because we have Rambam, then after that, everybody can kind of use Rambam as a guide to, write his own book on halakha. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm not saying that in a critical way. I'm just pointing out that once you know the earth is round, it's much easier to navigate the oceans. When everybody thinks the earth is flat, you can't navigate, right? So I'm describing, I'm not being critical. Rambam was the greatest hacham, in my humble opinion, by far, that ever lived, in that he restated the entire halakha, and he wrote this book, which is the mystical book. If you want to know what the real Kabbalah is, the Sodot Torah, the Sitre Torah, the Moreh Nevuchim is the book. The only thing is you can't study it on your own. You need a guide to take you through the guide. Having said that, and I studied the Moreh Nevuchim for decades with my father, Hareni Kaparat Mishkavo, for decades, literally. I'm sure there was there was a lot more I could have and should have studied with my father. So I'm not pretending like, but the greatest, my father left me a lot of gifts, tremendous gifts, intellectual gifts. But I think perhaps the greatest intellectual gifts was the lessons that we had on the Moreh Nevuchim. and it's just something we did all the time. Nevertheless, so in Arabic, the morena muhim is written in Arabic. Why am I saying all this? The title of the morena muhim in Arabic is Dalalat al-Ha'irin. Okay? Now, what is the word? Okay, so first of all, the person who translated the morena muhim into Arabic, his name was Rabbi Shemuel ibn Tibon. And when
into Hebrew, you mean?
I'm sorry, from Arabic.
Yeah.
From Arabic to Hebrew. I'm sorry, I misspoke. The person who translated the morena muhim from Arabic to Hebrew was Rabbi Shemuel ibn Tibon. So Dalalat al-Ha'irin. The Hebrew word he uses for Dalalat is Moreh. Okay, Moreh. The word Moreh means a guide or a master, in the sense of master, intellectual master, somebody that guides me in my direction. But it also means a direction sign. So let's say you're driving on a highway and you don't know which way to go. And then there's a sign that says, the famous joke, Bear Mountain left. I don't have to repeat the joke, but Bear Mountain left. So turn left, right? Not that the mountain left, but Bear Mountain left. Mickey Carey, Alav Shalom, used to use that joke all the time. Anyway, I laugh every time I think of that joke, but that's because Mickey used to say it. Nevertheless, Bear Mountain left. That's a dalalat. It's a dalalat. It's a signpost in the it's a signpost in the road. So the word dalalat also means a signpost, or you're hiking and you don't know which way to go, and then you see an arrow, right? Okay, but when the word dalalat is used in a metaphoric fashion, as it is used in the title of the morena muhim, it points out to, this is going to be hard. Okay, I'm just going to say it. It points out to the idea of signification. How do I find the correct signification? Meaning, how do I orient my mind in the correct direction? I'll give you an example. The word abad in Hebrew has many meanings, right? The most common meaning is to pass, right? But then it can also mean not to pass physically, but it could also mean a person who exceeded something. For example, he drank too much wine, so and as a result, it became drunk, right? So the word avar has many different possible meanings, and I'm looking for the right orientation. I give you an example. I see a pasuk in last week's parasha. We started it. Yad Hashem. Yad Hashem, or Yad Hazakah, the hand of God. Now, the hand in Hebrew means a physical hand, but it can mean something else. So how do I understand the idea of Yad Hashem, the hand of God? So I need the proper orientation to understand that word. Now you say, the Torah says Yad Hashem. Chas v'shalom, God has a hand. God is physical. Unfortunately, it's a fact of Jewish history that some rabbis in France back then, they believed in anthropomorphism. And they were very upset at Rambam for saying that, no, God is not a body. They were that upset them. It says Yad Hashem. It's right there in the Torah. What do you do with that, Rambam? So the answer is any word in the Torah and any word in any language. Anytime you read a text, you need to know how to understand the orientation so that you can orient your mind, the direction of your mind, and read the word properly. You see what I'm saying? I hope this isn't too abstract. The truth is, we have to give a class on the title of the Moreh. It deserves a whole class, and I'm kind of like cramming it into like a short thing. So that's where dalalat. Dalalat is a signpost, but it's also an intellectual signpost. What about the word ha'irin? So you know what word Rabbi Shemuel Mintibon uses to translate ha'irin? Nevuchim, from this week's parasha. Nevuchim is a precise translation. The Hebrew word nevuchim is a precise translation of the Arabic word ha'irin. Now, what does the word nevuchim mean? It means when a person is disoriented. So when a person is disoriented, I'm sorry, I have to give myself a cup of water. My apologies to everybody. I'm just, I have a little dust. I'm sorry. Give me a moment, please. Okay. So, morena nevuchim describes a state of disorientation. So you have dalalat, which is to orient us. It's a guide or a signpost for he who is, thank you so much. All right, so it's a signpost for he who is disoriented. So you see the title, dalalat means the signpost or the orientation for somebody who is disoriented. Now the greatest state of disorientation is a person who is lost in the desert. Okay, let me explain that to you. Let's say a person is lost in a wheat field. The wheat field is well structured and orderly. It's kind of built like a labyrinth, but it's very regimented. And if you look far away, you might see some objects that help you orient yourself. For example, perhaps you'll see far away in the distance a farmhouse, right? So you're kind of stuck in this labyrinth, but because there are permanent landmarks, you can ultimately use those landmarks to orient yourself out of this labyrinth, right? What about a desert? In a desert, there are no landmarks and there are no permanent shapes. Unlike a wheat field, for example, which has an entrance and has an exit, the desert doesn't have an exit and it doesn't have an entrance. And worst thing about the desert is that in the desert, the topography is changing like the ocean. You have endlessly shifting sand dunes and shifting shapes, changing shapes, because as the wind blows through the sand, it creates new forms and destroys old forms. So like in the wheat field, you rely on structures. If you see something with your eyes, oh, it's there, and you're gonna say, I'm gonna follow that, and I'm gonna get to that landmark. In the desert, what you see with your eyes may change and may no longer be there by the time you get to it. So you can't use any natural landmarks as a way to orient yourself. So being lost in the desert has a very special word in Arabic. It's called ha'irin. And in Hebrew, it's called navuch or nevuchim, right? So now you understand what the word nevuchim means. Now, the most horrifying dimension of the desert, I didn't say it yet, but I'll say it now, is that at the end, the only way out of the desert is death, and a particularly painful one. Dehydration, delirium, all mixed in with sunstroke. So now we understand the idea of nevuchim, and now we understand what the title of Harambam's work, morena nevuchim. In this world, we are in a desert. The shapes and figures are always changing. For example, the valleys of America. I mean, they've changed more in I don't know, in 1 year than, I don't know, in the last decade. I mean, it's just incredible how all the valleys are changing. And it's remarkable. It's remarkable to think about what's happening. I'm talking at the intellectual level, and I'm not trying to convince anybody what you should or shouldn't believe. That's, your own business, and I'm not going to change anybody's mind anyway. I know that if there's a Trump voter here, I won't be able to change your mind to make you vote for Biden, and vice versa. And I don't want to make you change your mind, because my purpose is to teach Torah. So please do not confuse my references to modern issues with an attempt to proselytize. It's not my business, but I'll just give you an example. I mean, there used to be not so long ago in America, Barack Obama, when asked, I think before the 2008 presidential campaign, his views on homosexual weddings, he was opposed to it. He says explicitly that marriage is between a man and a woman. Can you imagine somebody today, anybody today, saying that marriage is between a man and a woman? What would they do to this person? I mean, you remember what they did to the owner of Chick-fil-A? Because not the owner, it was the son. It was the son of the owner of Chick-fil-A who just praised the traditional family. I mean, they roasted him worse than a chicken. It was horrible. So you see how the shapes are always changing? You see how we're in a desert? The sand dunes are always changing. How do you orient yourself? What do I believe in? What do I do? Right? And similarly in the Jewish world, you have the Chabadnikim, you have the Satmarim, you have the Bells, you have the Franks, I mean the Sephardics, you have the Yemenites, you have Ashkenazim, you have all these different ideas out there, modern black hats, white hats, I don't know, zebra hats. I don't know, does that exist? I don't know, is there a zebra hat somewhere out there? I don't even know. I mean, I don't wear any hat. Maybe I should. Should I be wearing a hat? But okay, the question then becomes, what color hat do I wear? I don't know. That's a good question. And nevertheless, there's all these ideas, all these trends. Like, I don't know, there's Orthodox, modern Orthodox, strictly Orthodox, ultra Orthodox, pretend Orthodox, maybe Orthodox. And that's what's in the Orthodox community, right? So what do I do? So it's a desert. I can't orient myself. So we need a moreh. That's why you need to study the morena muhim, because with the morena muhim, you become completely lost. There's a great, and I hope I don't do this story an injustice. I'll try to remember it as I'm saying it, but there's a great story by Jorge Luis Borges, one of the great writers of our times. I mean, he passed away, I think, in the 80s. He was an Argentinian writer, absolutely brilliant in every way. His books are extremely complex. The stories are very complex. His stories are written like labyrinths. So when you try to read a story, you're like, how do I understand this? But he has a story, I think it's called Two Labyrinths. I think that was the title of the story. I don't remember exactly. I can find it if anybody's interested and tell you after the class. But yes, this is a story. There was an Arabian king, and the Arabian king was visiting the courthouse of the Babylonian king. Now, the Babylonian king had this interesting obsession with labyrinths. And he built this labyrinth that was so complex and that was so impossible to navigate through that anybody who went through the labyrinth ended up getting lost and never leaving the labyrinth. And as long as he had the Arabian king over, he was a Babylonian king, he viewed himself more as, kind of like intellectual, cultural, because Babel is like the city of the Tower of Babel. It's a well-built city. It has all these roads and all these artificial structures. So, and the labyrinth represents our ultimate artificial structure. So he decides to play a game on the Arabian king, and he puts him in the labyrinth and he says, I'd like to see if you can find your way out. And the Arabian king is in the labyrinth and he really is lost and he feels humiliated. And it's about to be dark and he begins to pray. And, the pasuk says, and the pasuk also says, Hashem listens to the prayers of all. So he accepted the prayer of this Arabian king and a miracle happened and he was able to leave the labyrinth. And the Arabian king told the Persian king, one day I'd like to invite you to the Babylonian king, I'm going to invite you one day to my country. And I would also like to show you a labyrinth. Says, no problem. So the Arabian king returns back to Arabia. He gathers his army together. The army goes to Babylonia. They destroy Babylonia. They ransack the city and they capture the Babylonian king. And they tie him up to a camel and they take him to Arabia and they enter the desert and they have the camel go way deep into the desert. But before they do that, the Arabian king tells the Babylonian king, when I was in your kingdom, you put me in the labyrinth and I got out. And now I'm going to put you in my labyrinth, and I'd like to see how you get out of this labyrinth. And the story goes that eventually the Babylonian king goes into the desert and he never again leaves. That's the concept of nevuchim. That's the world that we actually live in. We live in a world of a labyrinth with shifting shapes and unpredictable and treacherous conditions, quicksand, blinding sandstorms, and we become disoriented. That's the idea of nevuchim. Why is it so important to understanding this week's parasha? You know, Paro really said something smart. Paro was right. I want to tell you why. Paro was right. He used the word nevuchim. He was onto something. He wasn't stupid. What did we say was a problem with the Jewish people? They didn't have courage. When you don't have courage, when you're a slave mentality, what do? You follow instructions. Believe this. Accept that idea. Here's how you should think. This is good. That's bad. Slave mentality. Slave listens to what slaves can only see what they hear on TV. There's nothing else. They don't have the intellectual tools to decode things and to understand things. So TV said something, and so it must be, right? So that's the truth. So if you use this particular shampoo, you will have beautiful hair like that model. Yes, that's correct. All you have to do is use that shampoo. That's what it will do to you. It will transform your life and turn you into a beautiful model. But people believe this, of course. I mean, that's why they'll spend ridiculous amounts of money, because subliminally the message is there, right? And it's accepted. The message is accepted. That's why these commercials, they actually work. And political campaigns and slogans, political slogans work. The downfall of Rome was occasioned by unscrupulous leaders who didn't care about the people, but they were very good at fooling the people and promising things to the people, what they're going to do and how they're going to bring Rome back to its glory. And it was all a sham, of course, and eventually Rome fell. That's just in history. I mean, you can see it right there. You study the downfall of Rome and you understand where things are going in history. So
yes.
Yeah. And by the way, it's chilling. If you study the history of the downfall of Rome, I'm telling you, it's absolutely chilling. You will not believe it when you read these words. Just Google downfall of Rome and see what it says. See how Rome fell, and you will become chilled. I
think about it all the time with everything we see and this empire that we live in, etc.
Right. So now, what's the point of Paro? Oh, so now you know. Now I want to explain to you the key to understanding this week's parasha and what's happening here. How do you develop an internal compass that allows you to reject the nonsense propaganda that's being spewed at you 24/7? How do you develop that internal compass? So you need a dalalat, you need a guide. You need to be able to orient your mind properly. How do you do that? The answer is go into the desert. Go into the desert, a place where there are no external signs. How do you survive in the desert? The only way to survive in the desert is you have to have an internal dalalat, an internal dalala, an internal signpost. You begin to develop your own internal intelligence. And it is only with the internal intelligence that you can survive the desert. Just because you see a fountain of water doesn't mean you're saved. This week's parasha, you get to a water, what happens? Ki marim hem, it's bitter water. If you drink it, you'll die. What do? So now you suddenly realize a picture of water, beautiful oasis, is not necessarily as pleasing as it may appear. So you see a beautiful woman. Oh my gosh, Hollywood is just so fantastic. Look at these people. They're all so beautiful. I mean, can't I just share in that life of just, bliss and happiness? So that's the bitter water right there, right? Just because something externally has a particular image doesn't mean you should buy it. Well, we're Jews. We get the sketch. We understand that it's a farce. Okay, people in Hollywood are not happier than our grandparents and the Saddiqim and the Hasidim that wake up early every morning and go to Bet Knesset and pray to Hashem. They're actually much less happier. And we understand that because we understand just because you have a visual image of beautiful water, it could be mal. We get that. How do you get that? We went into the desert. We developed this internal compass. The internal compass says, be careful where you walk. Just because you see what looks like flat footing doesn't mean it is. It could be quicksand. It oftentimes was. You develop that internal dalalat. You see that hill over there? You see a sand dune? Let's use it to navigate. Hold on 1 second. It looks like a permanent structure. It might not be. So what does Hashem do? He takes us into the desert. And over the course of the 40 years in the desert, we become a courageous people. We're not afraid anymore. The reason we're not afraid is because we develop those internal signposts. We now know how to judge things critically and reach our own conclusions independent of what the signposts outside of us are saying. And that's exactly what the Morena does. The Morena as a book, I can talk about it a little now, it teaches us how to navigate through the desert of life and how to develop the ability to discern and understand when what's being dished out to us is utter nonsense, right? We know how to understand that. Just as a simple example, because I think it's an example you could all appreciate, so I won't be ruffling anybody's feathers by doing this. So there's a well-known rabbi in Israel, and I have nothing against well-known rabbis. I'm not even going to mention his name because I'm going to disagree with him, and it's not fair to disagree with people when they're not next to you. He's been going on now for close to a year, a big beard, and you see him all over the internet. The Mashiach is here. The Mashiach is coming. He's already here. He's revealed himself to many people. Any day now, he's going to reveal himself. It's been going on now since COVID broke out. Against COVID has driven a lot of people crazy, and they have no ability to control themselves. He's here. I just saw his video from a week ago. The Mashiach is here. He's going to reveal himself in a few days. Just wait. You'll see. I know people disagree with me, but no, he's here. So if you're a simple Jew and you're seeing this rabbi with the beard and, and there's like, he's in a synagogue and he's talking and wow, the Mashiach is here. But we all have the critical judgment. We all understand that he's talking nonsense. He doesn't know what he's talking about himself, right? Because we have that internal compass that enables us to see past the beard and past the garb. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with the beard. Maybe one day I'll grow one myself. I'm not trying to chas v'shalom denigrate the external appurtenances at all of Chachamim, chas v'shalom. I'm just saying that's not the ultimate compass. And if that's your ultimate compass, you're in very big trouble. Because it's really easy to put on that garb, right? So if the external elements of a situation are going to be your ultimate judgment for how to judge a situation, you're in big trouble. You're in big trouble. So that's the purpose of Parashat Beshalah. The purpose of Parashat Beshalah is to take us into the desert and teach us how not to be intellectual suckers, to be intelligent people who can exercise critical judgment and understand the truth independently of what we are told. That's a parasha. That's what I wanted to say about it. We can continue a little in the, in the text, but I wanted to share that thought with you. And we have about 6 minutes, so we can continue. Okay. All right. So let me continue reading. The Amar Paro Livnei Yisrael Nebuchim Hem Ba'aretz. Paro is going to see that the Jewish people are ha'irin. They're trapped. They can't escape the desert, as so often happens. Sagar Aleim HaMidbar. The desert has closed upon them like a labyrinth closes upon a person, and they can't escape the labyrinth. V'pizakti et leb Paro. This is, by the way, Hashem describing to Moses what's going to happen or what's happening in the mind of Paro. This is all Hashem describing to Moses. And he continues and he says, "V'chizakti et lev Paro." I am going to give the heart of Paro. I'm going to make it strong, and he's going to want to go out and express his strength. He's now going to chase down the Jewish people. And I will make his heart heavy, in the sense that, when a person is determined and he's heavy in his determination, he's not going to be swayed. He's going to be fully determined. And I'm doing all this for one purpose. I want the Egyptians to know that I am the ultimate Lord of what happens in the world. And exactly what Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, exactly like that it takes place. Paro is told that the Jewish people have run away. How did the parasha start again? Beshalah.
He just kicked them out. He just kicked them out. Yeah.
What is he saying? The Jews, they ran away. I mean, is this any crazier than some of the political things we're hearing around us now? It's not. It's really not crazier. I don't even have to explain it. There used to be a time where we lived in a sane society, and I would have to explain the insane. I don't have to explain the insane anymore because it's just obvious. Okay? But you kicked them out. You, Paro, you kicked them out. No, they ran away. Look at these conniving Jews, right? And now Paro is consulting with the nation. Guys, what do we do? We're letting these people run away? We're letting them go out just like that? You don't have any more chadamat. Who's gonna clean the kitchen floor? Who's gonna clean the bathroom for you? Now you came to me after Makat Bechorot. You wanted me to kick out the Jewish people. Yeah, you're happy now? Who's cleaning the bathroom for you? Who's cleaning the toilet? Right? This is what you wanted? So Paro is having this dialogue with the people, and everybody agrees, let's go. Let's go get those Jews back. Let's chase them down. But he takes his entire nation with him. What does it mean he takes his nation with him? What do you mean? With the nation, men, women, children, they all went to the battlefield? What does that mean? I have two explanations for this. I'll tell you the first explanation, which I like, and it's mine. And I'll tell you the second explanation, which I like, and it's also mine. And I like the second one more than the first. First of all, means he convinced the people to be with him. He had public support. Tyrants like Paro, they thrive on public opinion. They need the public to be with them. So he had the public with him. The public was behind him. And because he had the public behind him, that's what enabled him to do this. Because you remember after Makat Bechorot, the public was against it. They told him, get the people out. We're all going to die. You remember they were coming, right? So, okay. So now he convinced the public, let's bring him back. I have another explanation. I like this explanation even more than my first one. I believe that he went with the army. He took the chariots. He took the horses. He took the weapons. He took the best soldiers in Egypt, the gladiators. They're chasing down the Jewish people. You know what I think he did? I think he took the regular public with him. He wanted to show everybody what he's doing to the Jewish people. I think he took an audience with him, like a soccer game. I'm going to massacre these Jews. I'm going to take them back. I'm going to catch them like dogs, right? It was a soccer game. But Hashem did this because Hashem wanted to show the exact opposite. He wanted everybody to see what's going to happen. Now, Paro is taking the Amo, he's taking the people because he wants to show them, so look what I'm going to do to, you know what they used to do when they used to burn Jews alive in Spain? It was a spectator sport. It was a spectator sport. They used to catch Jews in the Inquisition. They used to have these giant arenas. People would come there. Yamach Shemam, the Spaniards, I hate them. I mamash hate them. The Catholics, Yamach Shemam, they never apologized. They should apologize what they did to the Jewish people, and the apology is worthless as long as they're anti-Israel. Yamach Shemam. Let them return the Kelei Bet HaMikdash, and then we can listen to their apology. Anyway, they were disgusting. They used to burn Jews alive and bring people. 1 second. Somebody just joined. Right. They used to bring people, audiences, to witness the burning of the Jews. It was like a public spectacle. Public spectacle. Right? They used to burn little children on the fire. The ones where there's a record of a girl who was burnt alive, 12-year-old girl, for lighting Nerot Shabbat. Unbelievable. Sick perverts, the Catholics and the Spaniards and the Portuguese. Kulam zu nevela v'zu terefa. Right. Ken yobedu kol oyevecha Adonai. B'mira b'amen. Anyway, so he wanted to do a spectacle. He takes the people with him. Everybody, everybody come with me. I want to show you all what I'm doing to the Jews. The same way the Spaniards did to the Jews, right? Let's make an audience of it. Let's make a festivity. Let's bring popcorn and, I don't know, Coca-Cola, whatever else they have, right? What happened at the end? There was an audience there. What did the audience see? Az Yashir Moshe Ubnei Israel Tashira Hazot Ladonai. The audience saw the entire fleet of Paro decimated, destroyed, and the Jews were singing this beautiful song unto God. That's what they ended up seeing. And there will come a time when the Mashiach arrives that it'll be the same thing. What the Mashiach does in Yemot HaMashiach will be similar to this. It will be Ve'et Amo Lakach Imo. The nations of the world will all be looking and, waiting, Chas v'shalom, for the destruction. Ve'et Amo Lakach Imo, but Hashem is going to twist it around. They're going to see the rising up of the Am Yisrael, of the Jewish nation, and the downfall of the enemies of the Jews. B'mira be'amenu. Amen. Ken Yirason. And when that happens, we will sing a new song unto God with Melech HaMashiach. But this parasha is the model for that Geulah. It teaches us an inkling of the way that Geulah will take place. And I think we have reached the end of a lot of time.
Beautiful. Wow. Wow. Very novel.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. So
Beautiful.
Shabbat Shalom to everybody. And Belina, the next week we have a good class. It's going to be on Aseret HaDiberot, or the prelude to Aseret HaDiberot. I want to see what I do there. All that. Shabbat Shalom.
Chazak Baruch, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.